What is up, y'all? We are back. Episode 2 of Love is Blind. I'm not even going to waste too much time because I'm going to try and knock out 2 tonight. This is the first one. I'm going to try and get to 3 by the end of the night. So I'm going to drop this one in a minute. But please, thumbs up the video. Please do that. Please drop a comment down below. I can't stress enough how much interactions help with the video. Helps push it out, get me in the algorithm. I want to bring more people to the channel to have conversations because a lot of these couples... There's two couples that I really, really like. And then there's one that's just like, ugh. But I'm going to get into it. But please subscribe if you are new here as well. Stay locked to the channel. I'm going to be dropping these daily, especially this week because there's 6 episodes. I'm trying to get them all out at least by Sunday. So you'll see me a lot on here. But let's go. All right, so we get back to... Monica. We see Monica pretty much, we're pretty much being introduced to her finally. She's pretty much stating like she's typically liking physicalities with men. Like she likes the biceps, she likes the arms, but she's there to not judge a book by its cover. So we get her and Steven's first conversation that we've seen. They pretty much start talking about his relationships and whatever. And he says his last relationship was his most communicative relationship that he's ever been in. She asked him, like, how long was it? He said it was 2 years ago, and it lasted for 2 years. He then starts talking about how he values talking about how you feel in a relationship, pretty much saying, like, open communication is very, very important. It is, and I'm glad he stated that. But he then shows her how much he actually stands by that, which I was actually impressed with him actually being this forthcoming with it. But she says it's normal to have a bad day and wanting someone that's not really expecting perfection all the time, aka you're going to have those days where you're not all the way feeling it. Like sometimes you'll have those days where you don't want to talk too much because you're just not in the mood. And that just really is what it is. But he says he wants someone who's okay with not being perfect and he wants them to call him out when he isn't perfect in the moments. And vice versa, same thing. She pretty much agrees with that. He says like essentially when it comes to like getting married, you want someone for their qualities, but you love them for their flaws. I've never heard that being said that way, but it is so true. Like people that I truly care about in my life, they're not perfect. I'm not perfect, but there are a lot of things about that person that makes you look past those flaws. And I don't want to say look past it as if you don't address certain things that are issues, but there are certain things about a person, their qualities that make them who they are at their core, that makes you overlook those issues that might possibly be an issue, a real issue. So I see where he's stating, and she agreed with that as well. But he then proceeds to let her know that he has cheated in the past. He has also been cheated on multiple times. He then pretty much states to her like he believes that he didn't deserve the girl that he had cheated on at the time. Pretty much said that he had slid in the girl's DMs. He was flirting with her with intention. He pretty much said like that's emotional cheating, essentially what he was doing. And he owned up to it. He said that he knew that he was going to get caught, and he did get caught. He said they went to therapy to try and figure it out, yada, yada, yada. She appreciates his honesty. I did too. I'm like, that's big of you to actually let her know that. Because what if she found that out later on down the line and didn't know it? That could be a big issue for her because she could be sitting there thinking, okay, well, he didn't tell me this. Who's to say this won't happen in the future? With him being honest about it and being upfront about it, I feel like it lets her see that he actually might possibly be a changed man. Because anybody that cheats, for the most part, I feel like they try to keep that hidden. They're not as forthcoming. And when you cheat, you essentially stamp yourself as a liar in my book. But him being forthcoming and being honest lets, at least to me, it seems like he's trying to change, or at least he has made those steps to change. But she says that the experiences she's had with cheating were very bad, but even in situations like that, she found ways to forgive. I don't know how you do it. Because I always say, if you ever cheat on me, it's up. It's done. Because I just don't respect it. I feel like that's one of the most disrespectful things you can do in a relationship is to cheat on your partner. Because I feel like if you are feeling like you are straying, the least you can do is be honest and tell that person before you even get to that point. Because if you make me feel like a fool and make me look like a fool, then I'm going to have an issue with that. But she states that she appreciated him for being honest again and feels like he might have been too hard on himself. There's no such thing as being too hard on yourself when you cheat. Continue to address it. Continue to take accountability for it. And continue to make those steps to change in that. But he then cuts her off and pretty much lets her know, like, I want to see you later on. I want to have another date. She agrees to it. We get back with the girls. Marissa is sitting there with Hannah, and Hannah's sitting there regretting her decision that she made with Nick. I kind of touched on it last night. She's stating that Nick said that he was going to leave since she ended it. I'm like, did he even say that? Because I was sitting there trying to remember. I'm like, I don't think he ever said that. And after Hannah, I feel like, because I put in my thumbnail last night that the two of them are red flags, but I'm starting to think she's the bigger red flag than he is. Because I feel like Nick's not even getting a fair shake. I feel like Nick being so forthcoming, him being so in tune with how to speak to women and actually kind of low-key run game on women, I feel like that kind of plays against him. Like, people think he is a player because he actually knows how to actually charm you up. And I feel like so far Nick has been genuine. I do. Like, granted, he's been very forthcoming when it comes to his bios and stuff about looks and stuff. And obviously you could tell he cares about what the woman he wants to be with looks like. But I can tell he's trying to engulf himself in this experience for what it is. And I feel like he hadn't gotten a fair shake. But Brittany comes in talking, she's coming in talking so highly of her. Well, she pretty much said that Brittany coming in talking so highly. No, this is what I said. I'm getting my notes mixed up. I said that Brittany coming in talking so highly of Leo made Hannah now realize, oh shit, I might not have Leo like I probably thought I did. So now she's thinking, okay, well, I might need to reel back in with Nick, because if Leo and Brittany are so connected, considering how Brittany's acting, maybe he might try and dump me. So now she's trying to play damage control. But Brittany is talking to Yenny, who I think that's how you say her name, but we ain't got to her yet. But she's pretty much telling Brittany, like, Hannah's being upset because she just broke it off with Nick. Hannah's then telling Katie and Marissa the first thing that Nick is going to do when he gets out is look them up on social media. Again, I feel like her insecurities are speaking. She projects so much because I feel like she's scared for him to actually see her, because I feel like she thinks that she is not enough for him. Like her saying, like, all these men think she's hot and yada, yada, yada. I don't think she truly believes that she's hot. I don't believe that truly actually happens. She's not an ugly girl at all. She's just not what society would deem as hot. So I feel like she's doing this stuff to kind of protect herself, which I understand, but she's very insecure, and it's very clear, but we'll get to it. But we get Brittany and Leo. She goes in letting him know it's been a stressful day because everybody had an emotional meltdown today because everybody learned who's dating who. I'm like, who was everybody that had an emotional meltdown besides Hannah, for real? Because, like, Hannah was the only one that really was having an issue. But she ends up letting him know that she had said his name and someone else on his list, a.k.a. Hannah, heard it. She claims that she didn't state it intentionally. I don't believe it. I feel like she did, because Brittany gets me messy. Like, she gets me messy. But he ends up stating that he's not mad at her for doing that because she's very honest with him, and it was inevitable. Like, eventually everybody's going to find out. But he ends up telling her that he has a crush on her and wants to focus in on the two of them. Keep in mind that I said that. She then starts crying, saying that she's been in a sad mood, because you can already tell, like, she's kind of like, what's really going on? And I feel like she feels that money slipping out of her hand. That's why she cries. She wants that piggy bank. But he then says that he's falling for her so hard and he's afraid to state that he loves her, but he feels like he might one day. And he might slip up. This one right here, he's probably my least favorite so far. He is a master manipulator, and I ain't even gotten to the rest of it yet to really see for sure, but I can just tell off of his vibes, something about him just ain't right. And my gut can't shake it. My gut can't shake it. If you know, don't drop it in the comments. I've only watched episode 2 right now. I'm probably gonna get to episode 3 later on. But if you know, don't drop it yet if something crazy happens. But I just know. But he's talking about how he's got 2 options, pretty much stating that he feels like a player in this moment. He feels like he's the pick of the litter. He's got 2 options. He's got 2 girls that essentially are at his beck and call, essentially. And you can tell he's eating it up, but he's trying to act like he doesn't. But she says she'll never beg somebody to be with her, even though it'll suck if it's not her that he ends up choosing. Essentially, that's what she's saying. But you can tell, like I said, that he likes the fact that he has options because it's uncharted territory, which is what I believe. But he ends up telling her that he feels like people misread her and misread her for being dumb, essentially, by the way that she acts. Pretty much saying, you did see, to her face. But he then proceeds to tell her that she was his number two, and now she's joined Hannah as his number one, his joint number one. I said, is that a compliment? Is she supposed to feel happy about that? Like, what? But then he proceeds to gaslight her into believing that she's really his number one. You just told her she jumped up to here, and it ends up asking her, like, can you see yourself marrying me? And it was like a little slight pause, and she says, yeah. I'm like, yeah, she'd be married to that money. But we move on to Hannah and Nick D. They come back in. He's still wearing the same clothes that they had that initial conversation in the last episode. So I'm like, this is the same day. But she's telling him that she's not been okay since what happened. And he's pretty much asking, like, do you feel like you made the wrong decision? And, of course, she says, yes, she does. But he ends up saying, like, I thought that we were good. Like, you coming in here and laying this on me, essentially, it just threw me off and it kind of hurts. And she says she understood that and she understands how he feels. She says she feels like she hurt him because she felt like he was going to hurt her, a.k.a. because she's insecure. She don't feel like she's enough for him. The way he's talking, I feel like in her mind, she thinks he's like some top dog. Like, you know how like the girls in school, say you got like a little geeky, nerdy girl that kind of gets the attention from the jock, the football player, and he's actually giving her that attention. And she sometimes can kind of like question if it's actually really genuine. That's the type of vibe I'm getting from her. Like, I feel like she doesn't feel like he genuinely likes her for her, because I feel like she don't really like herself for her. I feel like she has a lot of insecurities, and I hope she works those out. I hope that's not what it is, but that's just what I'm getting. Hannah, I feel like Hannah is very insecure. But she then says like the other girls were basically influencing her decision to make that decision to end it with him. He was like, so you basically listened to them. And she was like, yeah, I kind of did. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm like, this is funny how you said that, because last night, I don't even think I mentioned it in the recap. She basically said that he's trying to figure out who he is right now, like, and what you want. Sounds like that's you. You were projecting onto him. But she then says that she's scared that he'd be disappointed in her, pretty much stating what I just said. And she thinks that he'd break her heart, pretty much saying like, you a player. Like, that's pretty much what she thinks he is. And he's like, I'm not perfect. Maybe I'm saying the right things. It seems like I might be saying the right things and I sound super confident, but I'm scared too. And my whole thing with her saying that he's confident, what do you want your man to be? Like, do you want a man that's not confident? Like, I wouldn't think that would be attractive. Like, you as a man, you should be confident. Like I said, the man should be the one chasing the woman. And if you're going to chase a woman, you have to be confident. Like, if you can't pursue the woman and let her know that you really want her, you're not confident. So, like, do you want a man that's not confident? I don't get it. But he pretty much reassures her that he wants her and tells her to give him a chance, and she agrees to continue to talk to him. We move on. Leo and Hannah didn't have a conversation. I'm going to gloss through this. They pretty much address Brittany dropping his name. Hannah's pretty much like, yeah, I can tell y'all was connecting or whatever it is, what it is. I don't feel like she did it intentionally. She did, if you ask me. But he then says, like, the two of them, him and Hannah, have a strong connection, just like him and Brittany do. But he then starts talking about how he doesn't want to string them both along to the end. I feel like he enjoys the thought of that actually happening. And she's like, but that's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to pretty much spend enough time with the connections that you have to make that decision, because you're going to be proposing at the end of it. You should be. But they then start talking about how he's now... he's pretty much stating the same shit that he said to Brittany. Pretty much stating how he's excited to be on the outside with her, yada, yada, yada. Gaslighting, like literally manipulating. But she's stating the same thing. She pretty much said the same thing that she said to Nick, talking about wanting to have sex with him and yada, yada. It's just, next. Garrett and Taylor. She got him an avocado plant for their next date because she had remembered them talking about wanting plants and trees on their last date. And she takes that as like symbolizing the growth of the plant correlating to them growing a family in the future. So she says that she feels good about them, and she ends up asking if he has any questions for her. He then brings up like the timeline about having kids, and she says like around 5 to 7 years is roughly the best time for her in the next couple years. And he thought that she said 5 to 10. He's essentially saying like, that's too long. I don't blame him. I'll be 30 next year. I'm ready to have some kids. I need to have some kids because I ain't trying to be raising no kid at 60 years old. But I see where he's coming from. But he said it's not a deal breaker, but it is a long time. He said, well, I'm willing to compromise with you. And she said, it's not something that we need to compromise about. Basically saying, it's not what you think it is. Like, yes, I'm saying 5 to 7 years, but I feel like at the end of the day, I want to have kids, and when the time's right, it's going to happen. But she ends up mentioning how she had felt in the past like she's drug her feet because she was worried about it kind of forcing her to rush into having kids when she's not necessarily ready, which I'm glad she didn't do that, because like, go at your pace, like really go at your pace. And that's the thing too with what I just said about me. You got to find that person that's going to meet you there. And I'm not carrying kids. I can't have a kid. So my wife's going to have to carry those kids. And if she doesn't want to have those kids at that time, that's a decision that I'm going to have to make. Because if I want to have kids at a certain time and she doesn't, that could be a deal breaker. But that's just certain things that they have to kind of get on the same page about. But they then start talking about looks and whatever. She also then, before that, she ended up saying that she was excited about having kids with him, pretty much reassuring him. But she then asked him too, like, when are you going to ask me to be your girlfriend? And he ends up asking her. She says, no, you got 2 hours to convince me, jokingly. But they start talking about looks and stuff, how they feel each other's going to look on the outside, yada, yada, yada. Garrett then brings up how people state that they don't really think about looks, but they really do and just don't admit it. And that is true. Like, I said this when I was analyzing their bios. Me, it might come off shallow, but I need to be physically attracted to you. And I feel like that's with everybody. If you're not physically attracted to, even though I want to say that's with everybody, but some people are different. Some people can literally get intimate with somebody and not be physically attracted to them. But then again, sometimes people can. Me, I'm the type, I have to be physically attracted to you. And that's a big part of a relationship. Yes, the emotional connection is, but also let's be real. Sex is a big part of a relationship. And if you're not physically or sexually attracted to that person, I don't think it's going to work. But he ends up saying that he wants his partner to find him attractive, which is why he takes working out seriously. He puts a lot of time into the way he looks. And he said, even though sometimes it just doesn't translate for certain people, even though he might think he looks good, somebody might not think that he is. And that is true. Like, attraction is very subjective. But we then move on to Bowden and Marissa. We get to meet Bowden. He's the Ukrainian refugee. I think he's a refugee. He's Ukrainian. If he's not, don't me. But they start connecting on both of them reading books. They start going over their party stories, because he was like, what would be your go-to party story that you would tell your friends? So he starts it off. He starts talking about when he was in Kuwait for the Marine Corps. He starts talking about how they were in the middle of a desert and he had saw some camels and he wanted to take a picture with the camels. His friends were like, no, don't go up to it. It's too dangerous. So he still did it and went over and found the biggest camel. And he took a picture and made eye contact with the camel because the camel was looking at him. And he was like, I don't want to break eye contact with the camel because I don't want to feel like a punk. But the camel essentially started hissing and stuff and started running. So he starts running and then something hit him in his head. And guess what? It was the camel trying to stomp him out. So he was like, he immediately started thinking, like, what if my mom ends up getting a letter about me dying at the hooves of a camel? And he was like, that was his first near-death experience. And he hadn't felt anything like that until the war that's been going on in Ukraine and Russia. Y'all know about that, which is sad. It's sad for Ukraine. But she ends up asking about his Ukrainian story. As we know, he was born in Ukraine. He said that he had to leave to go to the Ukraine when everything was going on. He just felt like he had to be out there. And I understand it. And he was very, very blessed that his job allowed him to do it, which is, it's really good to hear that. Like, his job gave him the time to do it. They were like, take your time, do what you got to do. They actually went out there and funded certain things to help him out there while he was out there helping. And he starts getting emotional as he's talking about it because his friends were out there helping him as well, sending him things. So he's pretty much getting emotional about how everybody had actually really took the time and the investment into him going out there to do that good deed. And he starts talking about how his parents were being so proud of him. He was struggling to get his words out because he's getting choked up. She's giving him the space and the encouragement to continue to tell the story, take his time. I really like these two's connection. I feel like we're going to talk about Marissa's second connection, but I feel like this is Marissa's best connection if you ask me. But he really appreciated all the support that he got from his loved ones and his job. But he ends up saying that he was thinking about all the young kids that were forced into having to essentially fight the war because, like, they didn't have any training. It's like these young kids that literally have to fight Y'all already know what happened with Ukraine and Russia. I don't have to really explain it, but you know what I'm saying. But he was pretty much saying, like, if these young kids can do it, I can do it. I have to do it. He felt like he had it. He had an inkling, and he had to actually go out there and do it. You know how you get those inner thoughts where you're just like, I just have to go out here and help this person. That's what he felt. And she relates to it because she was in the military as well. She lets him know that she knows that he's a good person considering all the love and support that he has. And he ends up asking her about her party story. But she's like essentially saying, like, without saying, your story is so deep, I got to come up with something. I can't just think off the cuff, and mine just doesn't match up to what yours is. So they agree to come back to it later on. We get a scene of Ramsey and Bowden literally talking after this about pretty much like how Ramsey feels like there's going to be a lot of love triangles where one person's going to be left alone. And they transition into him and Marissa's conversation. Of course. It just makes sense. Because these are Marissa's two number ones. But she ends up that they go in greeting each other. She thanks him for their day earlier because he had made her feel comfortable to talk about anything. He mentions how now that they're dwindling down to their choices, he wants to let her know that she is his number one. And he thinks about her a lot. He ends up asking her where her head's at. She says it's like two people that she's connecting with, as we know, is Bowden and him. And she's pretty much like, I'm trying to figure it out. And he feels like she'll be the one choosing, because he pretty much let her know, too, what he just said to Bowden about the love triangle. And he said he feels like he'll be in a love triangle. And she thinks that he's talking about him being the one making the choice between two girls. And he's like, nah, you going to be the one making the choice because I could just tell that you are very wanted. Like, pretty much propping her up, letting her know that you are the prize. And he ends up bringing up his previous marriage, as we know from the bios that he was previously married. He talks about how they had gotten brought together because of their faith, and he was moving away from his religion and Christianity. And that's what ultimately led to them not working out. But he ends up saying that he had struggled with not feeling good enough because he never felt good enough with his dad, for his dad as well. Like, he felt like he never really amounted to anything with his dad that would be good enough for his dad. But she then talks about her mom's life, pretty much having a struggle because when her dad left, they weren't very fortunate. Like, they were on welfare, all that type of stuff. But she also then lets him know that she had lots of people that came into her life, introducing her to experiences that less fortunate people normally wouldn't get to experience. And she mentions how, like, her volleyball coach had took her to Disney. Certain things like that go a long way for a child, especially ones that don't really have anything. So it was special to her. She remembers that, as we can see, as a grown adult, she still remembers that stuff. So she ends up giving back to people. She says that just kind of just instilled a lot in her to where she gives back to people. She gives back to the homeless. He brings up how his close friends have been great examples of healthy masculinity to him. And he's pretty much stating, like, expressing my emotions, being in touch with my vulnerability, being in touch with who I am, which I agree with. He doesn't subscribe to those norms that society places in regards to masculinity, aka toxic masculinity. He said that he pretty much creates what masculinity means to himself, and she finds that really attractive. That is very good. I agree with that as well. He ends up asking her, like, what her type is, and she says she doesn't really have a physical type. And he's like, so if I'm 5'6", you gonna be okay with that? She said, yeah, I mean, I ain't gonna trip if you short, but she said it's more so about how the man makes her feel, which that is true. You should feel that way. But she ends up stating that she had dated a Trump supporter for 3 years. He said the same shit I did. I said, oh, shit. He said, oh, shit. I was like, okay, that's okay. And she also dated a liberal. So he ends up subtly mentioning proposing to her. And she said she needs more time. That body language, I was like, oh, I can already tell. Like I said, I feel like she's more connected to Bowden. We'll see how that works out, but I feel like he's probably the better suit for her. I want to see if Ramsey has another connection as well, even though he said this is his number one. But we also get Taylor and Monica back. They're talking in the room in the girls' room, and she sees her favorite flowers with a note on it. She realizes it's Garrett literally taking initiative, as she told him he had 2 hours to convince her. And he leaves her a note, a very thought out note, pretty much asking her to be his girlfriend, telling her to check yes or no like a little kid would do. Monica loved it. She did as well. Obviously, she checked yes. So we move into one of my favorite moments of the episode. One of two of my favorite couples. Tim and Alex, they have another conversation that was they're very deep. And this is why I like these two couples, because they get deep with each other. I feel like out of everybody besides Bowden, I feel like Bowden got a little bit deep with her and a little bit more vulnerable with Marissa. But these two, I feel like these two couples, I feel like have had the most emotional connection with each other, which is why I'm like super like low key invested in their journey. But they both look forward to talking to each other every time, and they told each other that. She brings up how when they left off, he had mentioned why he applied to go to Norfolk State and only wanted to go there. He then states that he wanted to do it because of the band. He grew up singing a lot in church. He and his sisters are all around musical instruments. They played a lot of musical instruments. He went on a full music scholarship. He wasn't a high achieving student, but he also tested very high in school, but he hated school. But he also loved learning. I understand that because I was the same way. Like, I love learning new things, but being in school, having to take tests, do homework, I hated that shit. But he ended up mentioning joining the Navy was the best decision that he had made, but also getting out was also the best decision. But he's grateful for all the places that he's been with being in the Navy, and he's been in places where he never would have really been able to be. She then brings up how her grandfather was the National Secretary of Islam. He worked with Elijah Muhammad, and also there was a photo of him and Muhammad Ali in her dad's house. Tim automatically just like perks up because he loves Muhammad Ali. He said he had 4 pictures of him in his house. So she then starts proceeding to talk more about her grandfather and how he wasn't big on college, pretty much stating like, you don't really have to go to college to be successful. And I agree with that. You don't. I'm a big advocate for going to school. I went to school. But I feel like the more life continues to progress, the world continues to progress, there are so many more ways to make money, like YouTube. I make money off of here. Social media, you can make money off of YouTube. Or you can make money off of social media, period. So there's other avenues to be successful. And that's pretty much what she was talking about. But she said that she agrees with that too. But her parents were about her going to school. They wanted her to go to school, get the good grades, yada, yada. But she said when it was time to go, she didn't have the money to do so. She also then talks about how like she feels like you don't have to go to school to be successful. She also mentions how she wasn't raised Muslim but grew up Catholic, but her grandfather being the Secretary of Islam, she was curious of what his religion was. And he was like, I don't really have one. I just believe in God. As you should. This is what it is. But he then proceeds to open up about his family. And I just love how Tim, you can tell how comfortable he feels with her. And it's so special to watch because, like I say, black men on TV, we don't normally see us actually doing this. I know what happens. I'm a black man myself. I don't really have a lot of emotions per se, but I don't ever have an issue with voicing my feelings. Whereas a lot of black men notoriously out here don't really voice that type of stuff. Sometimes like we naturally have this stigma on us where we always have to be super strong. We have to always block everything out, deal with our own issues inside and not really talk about it, which is why a lot of women, especially a lot of black women, really, really want that from a man. They want a man to be able to sit there and actually let them in. So to see these 2 black men, him and Tyler, literally just doing it by themselves, it's not being pried out of them. Like Alex and Ashley are not pulling it out of them. They're giving them that, and it's crazy too because I feel like they obviously know these are black women they're talking to, but they don't really know for sure. And it's like it's just coming out, and it's good to see it on TV because we don't normally see that. But back to what I was saying, he was talking about his family. He said it's personal for him with his sisters because his children will never get to know their aunts, which is so sad to think about. But he wants to be able to kind of like retell their legacy and let them know about what they were and who they were. And he lets her know that his older sister had died of lupus, which is sad. He talks about when he had gotten to the hospital, he had saw tears in his dad's eyes and realized something was wrong. He was younger when this happened. He said that there was this noise that his mom had made that she had never made before, which is what kind of led him to believe that his sister was gone. And he said he would never forget it because he's never heard her make that noise before. He also mentions how his older sister was trying to get her class ring off of her finger because like her hand was swollen, or her fingers were swollen as well, but she was trying to pull it off. And he stated as a child, he was like, no, don't do that, because he probably thought that it was hurting her. But he was also glad that she did because now he keeps her class ring and he's got his other sister's class ring around his neck as well. So he kind of wears that as a piece and a token to have them with him at all times. Super deep. Alex is sitting over there crying her eyes out. He's continuing. The more he talks, the more emotional he gets. He's talking about how he couldn't have asked more from his parents. You could tell he has such a deep appreciation for his parents. You could tell he's a family man. You could tell he really loves just family. You can tell how much he really cares about his family and how much he really wants that. And he says that he thinks about all the funny things that his sisters used to do. He's the younger brother. The stuff that he was talking about, the stuff that older sisters would do to their younger brother. They're both now crying together. She thanks him for sharing. He thanks her for listening. He says that he's going to say something to her. This way here was, I'm a thug. I don't cry. But if I did, I had an inner cry listening to this. He said that he is going to tell her something that he's been thinking but has never said to anyone. He said that he wants to give his parents another daughter, a.k.a. his wife will be another daughter to them. He said that he loves that so much. The thought of him actually being able to do that, she's bawling even more. She throws it back and starts tears just streaming. And he lets her know how grateful he is to have met her, even though he hasn't physically met her. I was like, wow. But Garrett and Taylor, they pretty much meet back up again. She's got this note from her grandparents, which is love notes that they sent to each other. And she pretty much reads them to him. He's taking it all in. She pretty much recaps their journey in the pods together, reassuring him, thanking him for being vulnerable with her, which I do believe to Garrett. I feel like Garrett has been super duper genuine when it comes to Taylor. I feel like she's got a good one, and I hope they work out as well too. Because I feel like they could be really good together too. I feel like she needs to break those walls down completely. She still got them guarded. I feel like there's probably something more to why she has them as guarded. She might have had a super crazy experience in the past. I feel like she needs to let him in a little bit more because I feel like he's given her a lot. But I feel like they can do it. But he's pretty much speechless at this point. He's taking it all in. He speaks his piece to her. Obviously, he gets up and guess what? He proposes and she accepts. Short and sweet. That was pretty much it with them. She goes back in and tells the girls. He goes back in and tells the guys. Obviously, everybody's happy. We then get another scene with Steven and Monica. She ends up asking him if he voted in the last election. Not this. I don't know if she was specifying this one that just happened. Well, not just happened. It happened 4 years ago. But I thought she might have been mentioning the one from the first one. But regardless, he clarified. He did. He was very honest. He said that he would vote for Trump. And when he said that, I was like, uh-oh. And I started judging him. I'm not going to lie to you. I did. And he said because he didn't like Hillary. And he said because but he also despised how Trump had handled his term. I was like, okay, good to know. Good to know. But I'm like, then again, like before his campaign, before he had actually gotten elected as president, that should have been enough for you to not want to vote for him. But whatever, we'll keep it moving. But he then told her too that he later voted for Biden. So he voted for Trump his first term, but he then voted for Joe in his second run. But he didn't agree with the concept because he said that his dad is a Republican and is always voting Republican and doesn't change. He's not open to change. He's not open to hearing out anything outside of Republican. And he says he doesn't agree with that concept of people voting a certain way for a certain party without being willing and open to change and hearing other people's mindsets. I agree with that. Even though I always tend to vote Democrat, I'm open to hearing everything. But I'm a Democrat. Like everything that a Democrat typically stands for, I agree with. I'm all about helping those that are less fortunate. In my mind, I feel like this might be opening a can of worms. I feel like Republican parties typically only care about those up there. That's my thought process. If you feel upset about it, which I'm pretty sure somebody ends up jumping on this video and sees that, they're going to have something to say. But whatever. That's how I feel. But he ended up admitting his vote wasn't the most educated vote. The first vote wasn't the most educated vote. And he then gets into his background. We then find out that he states that he identifies as white. I'm like, what else would you be? Because you clearly look white. But I can tell by that hair that he is not all the way white. And then we find out, too, that his grandmother had him and his family and his siblings thinking that they were Italian. And he later found out after his sister had did the ancestry that they are only 0.3% Italian. We then find out that his dad essentially has a pretty decent, hefty lineage that is mostly West African. I'm like, that hair was a dead giveaway. But his dad is essentially half black. He's since engulfed himself in the history, the culture. He wants to learn a lot more. He's about all these research books. So he's very intrigued with wanting to get to know more of his other side of his existence, which I like to hear. And we also find out that she is mixed. Her mom is Honduran and her dad is black with a little bit of Cherokee. I feel like a lot of us have Cherokee in our lineage, but this right here, my favorite couple, Tyler and Ashley A. This is the last part. They come in, they got some orange chicken, which is what I think it is, and some rice. He ends up letting her know that he had wrote a prayer for them. I'm like, here we go. This is perfect. Like, this is perfect. My grandma probably, if she watched this, she would love this. Because my grandma is all about a black couple being rooted in faith. But he says grace. It was very well thought out. She's eating it up. She's over there trying not to cry as he's doing it. They then start eating. She's talking about how emotional she is. He ends up saying, too, like, there's no right way to pray, which is true. There is no right way to do it. Like, as long as you're doing it, you're speaking to God, you're letting him know what you need to get off your chest. Do it. Do it how you see fit. There's no right way to pray. But he said that he's had an issue in the past with doing it out loud, but it is super important to him that they feel comfortable enough to do it together. I said, that's special. That is special. I agree with that. But she ends up saying, like she don't know what to say, but she is like her. You could tell it's just literally oozing off of her. But it's like you could tell she feels like he might be too good to be true. It's like she's like, damn, like this is really happening. But she ends up saying that her faith has gotten her through so much, and she's never had someone to pray with. And he said that he's never had this experience before, and he feels safe with her, stating that he can feel like he can say any and everything to her and feel comfortable with her. Which is true. Like, we literally saw it from day one, minute one. They literally got in there and he was just very forthcoming, very honest with her. But she then tells him how sincere he was from day one, talking about like how he was nervous as shit the first day. But they also talk about how he said that he don't give a fuck what she looks like. And she's going to be his bro dog regardless. Like, at the end of the day, you're going to be mine. Like, I'm going to be with you forever. Like, he pretty much said, like, if we don't even work out, I'm going to care about you. I'm like, you don't care what she looks like, but you're going to be very, very, very pleased when you see what she looks like. And I feel like the same thing for her. I feel like they're going to be very, very pleased with the way each other physically look. Even though that's not the most important part, but that's going to be icing on the cake. But he then moves to them listening to music. Love it because I love music. I feel like everybody loves music, and I feel like music it really says a lot about you. Like, I'm a type of person, I'm very much like her, where she said like she listens to a little bit of everything, but 90s and early thousands R&B is her favorite. I agree with that. I listen to a little bit of everything too. Like, you go look through my playlist, my gym playlist for the year, you're going to see a little bit of everything in here. The only thing I don't listen to is country. I don't listen to rock, that heavy metal shit, but I listen to R&B, hip hop, rap, soul, blues, gospel, all types of stuff, pop. You're going to see it through there. But he ends up asking if she's listening because they're playing this country song. It's like a country love song. And he's asking if she's listening, and she says, yes, I am. He then tells her he really loves her and wants her to know that she's safe and protected. She's a mess. She is crying. He says no matter what happens, and he's saying this as the music's playing. It just literally hits. It just hits. But and it's not even like it's calculated. It just literally is just genuine. It's just flowing. And you could tell he's just literally feeling everything that he is saying. But says no matter what happens, he will always have her back in life. She's fanning herself. She's just crying. Like I said, they're my favorites. He ends up asking her if she's okay. She says yes. She says, I'm not a crier at all. He said, yeah, I could tell. Trust me. But he ends up asking her like what's going through her head, and she's like everything that she wants long term that she feels she can have here. And he says you can have it. It's on the other side, pretty much saying like I'm here, I'm yours, you can have me. And she's like, oh, Tyler, like she always does. And he says, Ashley. But he ends up leaving saying that because they ended up departing. He's like, can we get married? I hope they make it down the aisle. I hope they make it out the process, which I feel like they will, obviously. But I hope they make it down the aisle. But they go back inside with the girls and the boys. She's telling the girls like it felt like a dream. Monica's like, that's a good man. He loves you, and he does. He comes in there with the gangster lean, start pimp walk, cheesing ear to ear. And then we end on a cliffhanger with Garrett and Taylor meeting for the first time. That was episode 3. Please let me know y'all's thoughts down below. Please thumbs up the video if you have not already. Please subscribe if you have not already. Y'all will see me in a couple minutes. If you don't, follow Missing Report.